Alexander the Great, the eternal conqueror, when a mortal dared to challenge the world. In the spring of 334 BC, a 20-year-old king from a small Greek kingdom stood on the edge of the Hellespont, gazing across the shimmering waters into Asia Minor, Persian territory. He wasn't just crossing a sea, he was crossing into legend. His name was Alexander, son of Philip of Macedon and student of Aristotle, but he believed he was something more, a son of the gods, born to reshape the world. With 40,000 troops and a burning desire for glory, Alexander began a campaign that would stretch from the Mediterranean to the edges of India, toppling the greatest empire the ancient world had ever seen. But this is more than a tale of conquest. It's the story of how one man's vision, ambition, and genius changed the course of history, and how, in his pursuit of the divine, he may have destroyed the very empire he created. Foundations of Fire, the invasion of Persia, 334-3-3 BC. The Battle of the Granicus River. Alexander's first test came immediately, the Battle of Granicus. Persian satraps had gathered a strong defense near the riverbanks, believing Alexander would wait until morning. He didn't. Instead, he charged straight through the river. The companion cavalry crashed into the Persian lines, while the Macedonian phalanx, armed with 18-foot sarissas, advanced in perfect coordination. A close call. 2 Persian nobles nearly killed Alexander in battle. One lifted his axe high, but Clitus the Black, Alexander's bodyguard, saved him by slicing off the attacker's arm. Ironically, Alexander would later kill Clitus in a drunken argument years later. The message. Alexander sent 300 sets of Persian armor back to Athens as a dedication to Athena, declaring his triumph. The sieges of Miletus and Halicarnassus next, Alexander turned to Persia's naval strongholds. He captured Miletus quickly, but Halicarnassus was a different beast. Defended by Memnon of Rhodes, a Greek fighting for Persia, the city resisted fiercely. Siege towers, battering rams, and fire ships turned the fight into a months-long grind. Eventually, Memnon fled, and Alexander took the city, cutting off Persia's power in the Aegean Sea. Clash of Kings. The Great Battles, 333-331 BC. The Battle of Issus, where kings meet. In 333 BC, the Persian king Darius III met Alexander near Issus with a force more than double in size. But geography betrayed him. Hemmed in by mountains and the sea, he couldn't use his numbers effectively. Alexander advanced in a diagonal oblique formation, drawing Persian forces out of position. Then came the famous companion cavalry charge, a wedge led by Alexander himself that sliced through Persian ranks. Darius fled the battlefield, abandoning his wife, mother, and children. What did Alexander do? He treated them with honor and respect, a calculated move to present himself not just as a conqueror, but as a legitimate king of Persia. Siege of Tyre, conquering the impossible. Tyre was a fortress city built on an island, surrounded by thick walls and proud of its independence. Most believed it was impregnable. Alexander believed otherwise. For 7 months, his men constructed a causeway through the sea, an engineering marvel. Tyre fought back, destroying towers with fire ships, but Alexander adapted, rebuilt, and eventually broke through. After the city fell, 7,000 Tyrians were killed and 30,000 enslaved. This wasn't just vengeance, it was a message: resist and you'll be wiped out. Egypt and the Oracle of Siwa. In 332 BC, Alexander entered Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. He founded Alexandria, which would later become a beacon of science and culture. He then traveled to the remote Oracle of Siwa in the desert. There, legend says the priests called him the son of Zeus Ammon. Did they actually say that? We'll never know. But Alexander left believing it, or at least using it to justify his divine kingship. The fall of an empire, 331-330 BC. The Battle of Gaugamela, the crown of the world. This was the showdown. Darius III assembled one of the largest armies ever fielded, complete with elephants, scythed chariots, and elite warriors. Alexander responded with strategy. He advanced diagonally, again pulling Persian troops out of position. When a gap opened in the Persian lines, Alexander launched his companion cavalry straight at Darius. Again, the Persian king fled. Again, Alexander stood victorious. He marched into Babylon, Susa, and then to Persepolis, the ceremonial heart of the Persian Empire. There, in a symbolic act, possibly of vengeance for Persia's invasion of Greece, 150 years earlier, Persepolis was burned, the death of Darius. As Alexander pursued Darius, he learned that the king had been betrayed and killed by his own satrap, Bessus. Furious, Alexander gave Darius a royal burial and declared himself king of Asia. He then chased Bessus across the mountains into Central Asia, capturing and executing him for regicide. But by now, Alexander wasn't just a Greek king. He adopted Persian customs, wore Persian dress, and demanded proskynesis, kneeling before the king. His own men began to whisper, was he still one of them, or had he become something else? Beyond the known world, 329-326 BC. Beyond the known world, 329-326 BC. Roxana and the Sogdian Rock. In modern Uzbekistan, Alexander faced guerrilla warfare. At the Sogdian Rock, defenders taunted him, saying not even eagles could reach them. So Alexander found volunteers to scale the cliffs at night, appearing like ghosts on the fortress walls by morning. The defenders surrendered in shock. There, Alexander met and married Roxana, a Bactrian noblewoman, his first wife. Was it love? Politics? Maybe both. But it symbolized his merging of East and West. The Indian campaign, clash with King Porus. In 327 BC, Alexander crossed into India, determined to reach the edge of the world. At the Battle of the Hydaspes, he faced King Porus, whose army included massive war elephants. The terrain was muddy and the river swollen. Alexander used stealth to cross upstream at night. When the battle began, he isolated Porus's elephants and used his phalanx and cavalry to outmaneuver the Indian king. Porus, though defeated, impressed Alexander with his courage. Alexander made him a regional governor, a rare show of mercy. But at the Hyphasis River, his men had had enough. Worn from years of war, they mutinied, refusing to go further. Alexander wept, but turned back. The fall of a god, 325-323 BC. The Desert March. Returning wasn't easy. Alexander led part of his army through the Gedrosian Desert, an unforgiving hellscape of sand, wind, and heat. Thousands died of thirst and exhaustion. Was this punishment for disobedience, or a mistake driven by pride? Either way, it nearly broke his army. Death in Babylon. In 323 BC, Alexander returned to Babylon, planning future conquests, perhaps Arabia or even the Western Mediterranean. But after a banquet, he fell violently ill. He never recovered. Was it malaria, typhoid, alcohol poisoning, or maybe assassination? We may never know. At just 32 years old, the conqueror of the world lay dead, leaving no clear heir. His generals, the Diadochi, would tear his empire apart in bloody civil wars. The man who touched the divine. Was Alexander a hero or a tyrant? A liberator or a destroyer? He unified the world, but also plunged it into chaos. He claimed divinity, but couldn't conquer his own mortality. As the Roman historian Arrian once wrote, there is no race of men, no city, no individual that he did not make known to the world. Alexander didn't just conquer lands, he conquered time. He remains an eternal figure, etched in stone, myth, and memory. Even today, we look east and west and see echoes of his vision, his fire, and the impossible ambition of a man who sought to grasp the edges of the earth and came closer than anyone ever has.